one, I think, would be the development of the silicon chip, which is the foundation for all the computers and computer-driven equipment that we have today. With the silicon chip, enabled us to build computers. The chip itself probably became available around 1950. It took 35 more years to develop personal computers. That was about 1985. But without that chip, the computer business would not have come around. So that's number one.
Integrated circuits revolutionized technology. The integrated circuit is a circuit on a piece of silicon or another semiconductor and is one of the most invaluable inventions of all time. It was created in 1959 by two independent inventors in the United States. Jack S. Kilby and Robert Noyce created two different integrated circuits. Noyce's was easier to reproduce because it was made out of silicon, unlike Kilby's, who made his out of germanium.
I was working for United Airlines. We saw some things that we could use these wonderful new machines for that would eliminate a lot of clerical work and speed things up. And I can recall going to an important United executive with a proposal that we buy, I think it was 10 PCs. And his answer was no. And he was concerned that people would play with these things instead of doing productive United Airlines work. They'd be sending messages to other people or playing, simple games. And today, there are millions and millions of computers in offices around the United States. And yet, in a major corporation, we were very reluctant to get into this because we had no idea. We only saw their potential for diversion, not for promotion. Number two, I guess, would be the development of microsurgery, the growth in knowledge about good nutrition and diet. And I say all this because one of the big things that's happened is life expectancy. Number three, I guess I would say the development of the jet airplane, which has completely transformed travel patterns. When I was a kid, there was no nonstop air service between New York and LA. What there was very limited and very uncomfortable and to a considerable degree very unsafe. Now we have a fantastic transportation network. You can get anywhere in this country in 6 hours. That's hard to choose the most significant. If anything, it would probably be the health improvements. It's easy. The fall of the Soviet Union, the collapse of the Soviet Union.
The fall of the Soviet Union occurred in 1991. The country was facing economic problems because of the Cold War with the United States. Mikhail Gorbachev was left to fix the economy. The government eventually lost control of the citizens. Boris Yeltsin became popular and influenced many to revolt against the government. Late December of 1991, Gorbachev left office and Yeltsin became president.
Yes, there were all the war events. There was Hitler, there was Stalin, there was the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Cuban Missile Crisis. all of these things occurred, and they're all important in their own way. And that's why it's so hard to pick out, which is the most significant. They all interplay, and makes it kind of hard to choose one over the other. Wow. Insofar as the Soviet Union is concerned, I think it was eventually going to crash, but it could have done a lot more mischief around the world. In the culture, during the 70s and 80s, there was a gradual growth in entertainment options. There were some great TV shows that began in the 70s and ran for maybe 5, 6, 7 years. Entertainers, I suppose the biggest entertainer was probably Bob Hope, who was a comedian and who was a very, very funny man who had very funny writers. And he was a huge star. It's funny how, Bob Hope seems to, Bob Hope, what? And compared with his reputation during his heyday, reminds me of an old Latin phrase, sic temper gloria mundi, how the glory of the world changes. It means that today you can be hugely famous and tomorrow you're on the ash heap of history, as Reagan would say. It teaches you a certain amount of humility that you weren't able to anticipate them, and yet they turned out to be so important. I often wonder about you girls and Liam and Declan. It almost seems like, well, everything that's been invented or needs to be invented has been invented. It's hard to see the next big event, and either in terms of military events, political events, commercial events, artistic events. It's hard for me to see what they are, and I sometimes think, maybe it's all done, and you guys will drive the same vehicles in your lifetime that we have right now, that there'll be no new intellectual breakthroughs because it's all done. And yet, history teaches you that that's absolutely false. Can you imagine being a Roman back in the year 20 AD and trying to visualize what has come about in 2,000 years? Whoa! So you know that a lot's going to happen. We just don't know what.
Yeah.
Am I done?
Yeah.
Can I have my check now?
I don't have any money. I'm kind of broke.